kingdoms fell here. The year is 1066. England is about to be torn apart. Forget everything you think you know about medieval battles. This is not a fairy tale of knights in shining armor. This is a bloody, brutal three-way death match for the most valuable prize in Europe, the English crown. And the final blow will fall on a rainy hill near a place called Hastings. By the time the sun sets on October 14th, an entire era will be erased. The old world of Anglo-Saxon England will die in a spray of mud and iron, and a new, ruthless French duke will seize a kingdom. This is the story of the Norman Conquest. But to understand the Battle of Hastings, you have to go back not just months, but years. Because 1066 didn't start with William the Conqueror. It started with a death. On January 5th, 1066, King Edward the Confessor dies in his palace in London. He's old, he's childless, and he leaves behind a power vacuum so wide you could drive a Viking longship through it. The throne of England is suddenly up for grabs, and three ruthless, ambitious warriors, all believe they are the rightful king. First, there's Harold Godwinson. He's the most powerful noble in England, a seasoned battlefield commander from a family that practically ran the country even before Edward died. The day Edward dies, the English council, the Witan, scrambles to pick a successor. They don't hesitate, they crown Harold the very next morning. He's popular, he's strong, and he's English. But there's a problem. Two very dangerous men refuse to accept this. The second man is Harold Hardrada, King of Norway. Think of the most terrifying Viking you can imagine, then multiply him by 1,000. Hardrada is a living legend. He's fought across Russia, the Middle East, and Constantinople. He's 6.5 feet tall, he's supposedly invincible, and he wants England because his Viking ancestors once ruled part of it. He looks at Harold Godwinson and says, "Nice crown, I'll take it." And then there's the third man, the one you've all been waiting for, William, Duke of Normandy. He's the bastard son of a previous duke, but he's cunning, he's cruel, and he's a military genius. William claims that back in the 1050s, Edward the Confessor promised him the English throne. Even more dangerously, William claims that Harold Godwinson himself swore a sacred oath on holy relics to support William's claim. Harold says that oath was given under duress. Basically, he was tricked. William doesn't care. By the summer of 1066, he's building a fleet of hundreds of ships in Normandy ready to invade. So here we are, 3 kings, 1 island, 0 compromise. Something has to explode. And it does. In September 1066, Harold Hardrada makes the first move. He lands in northern England with 300 longships and about 15,000 screaming Vikings. They march on the city of York. The English army in the north meets them at Fulford Gate on September 20th. The battle is a slaughter. The English are crushed. York surrenders to the Vikings. Hardrada is so confident he's won that he accepts hostages and prepares to march south to finish off Harold Godwinson. But he's about to learn a brutal lesson about timing, because King Harold Godwinson is not sitting in London waiting. He's a warrior king. The moment he hears about the Viking invasion, he does the unthinkable. He marches his entire army, the elite housecarls and the peasant levies, north, 200 miles, in just 4 days. This is one of the greatest forced marches in medieval history. His men are exhausted. They're running on adrenaline and anger. But on September 25th, they catch the Vikings completely by surprise. The Battle of Stamford Bridge is pure chaos. It's a hot day, and the Vikings have left their armor back on the ships. They're lounging, expecting no trouble. Then they see the dust cloud. Then they see the glint of English axes. Harold Godwinson attacks without mercy. The battle rages for hours. The most famous moment is when a single giant Viking berserker holds the entire bridge alone, cutting down over 40 English soldiers with his axe, until an English soldier floats under the bridge in a barrel and stabs him from below. But eventually, the English break through. Harold Hardrada, the invincible Viking, takes an arrow to the throat and dies in the mud. The Viking fleet flees back to Norway with only 24 of the original 300 ships. England is saved. Harold Godwinson is a hero. The Viking threat is over. He feasts with his men in York, celebrating the greatest victory of his life. But there's no time for rest, because a messenger is riding north at breakneck speed. And the news is a nightmare. William of Normandy has landed. On September 28th, just 3 days after Stamford Bridge, William's fleet of 700 ships lands at Pevensey Bay in southern England, unopposed. While Harold was crushing Vikings in the north, the Normans were building a wooden castle and burning villages in the south. Harold gets the message on October 1st. His army is battered, exhausted, and bleeding. His men haven't fully recovered from the march north or the battle. Every sane advisor tells him, "Wait, let William come to you. Rest your troops." But Harold Godwinson is not a patient man. He's just beaten the greatest Viking in history. He's confident, too confident. He orders his army south again, another 250 miles in 12 days. By October 13th, his men are collapsing from fatigue. Many have dropped out. He arrives near Hastings with perhaps 7,000 to 8,000 men, mostly infantry with axes and spears. William of Normandy has a similar number, but his army is different. He has knights on horseback, he has archers, he has crossbowmen, and most importantly, his men are fresh, well-fed, and ready for war. The night of October 13th is tense. Harold's army takes position on the ridge of Senlac Hill, about 10 kilometers from Hastings. It's a strong defensive spot. The hill is steep, the ground is muddy. Harold arranges his men in a shield wall, a solid line of interlocking shields, with their deadly Danish axes ready. This is the famous English tactic. They don't move. They just stand there like a wall of iron and wait for you to break against them. William scouts the hill. He sees the shield wall. He knows a direct uphill assault is suicide, but he also knows he has no choice. He has to attack. The sun rises on October 14th, 1066, and what follows is not a battle, it's a 15-hour nightmare. The battle begins at 9 in the morning. William orders his archers forward. They shoot uphill, but the English are smart. They hide behind their shields. The arrows bounce off. No effect. William then orders his infantry to charge. The Norman foot soldiers run up the hill screaming. They crash into the shield wall, and they die. The English axes are brutal. A single swing can cut through a helmet, a shield, a horse's neck. The Normans are pushed back down the hill. Then William sends his cavalry, the famous Norman knights. They gallop uphill, but horses can't climb mud easily. The English housecarls step forward and hack at the horses' legs. Knights tumble into the dirt and are finished with daggers through their helmet eye slits. The Norman left flank breaks completely. A rumor spreads, the Duke is dead. Panic starts to ripple through the Norman army. Men begin to flee. This is the moment when most armies would lose. But William does something extraordinary. He rips off his helmet, rides in front of the fleeing troops and shouts, "Look at me! I am alive! We will win!" He rallies his knights, and then he notices something odd about the English line. A group of English soldiers, maybe 100 or more, have broken the shield wall. They're chasing the fleeing Normans downhill. It's a fatal mistake, because the Normans on horseback turn around. They surround the overconfident English and cut them down to the last man. And in that moment, William realizes something. The shield wall is only strong if it stays together. If he can make the English break formation, make them chase, he can destroy them piece by piece. So William orders a new tactic. It's a feigned retreat. His knights will charge, pretend to be terrified, and run away. The English, seeing the Normans flee, will shout, "Victory!" and break the wall to give chase. And then the knights will turn and slaughter them. This trick works. Again, and again, and again. Each time a group of English soldiers chases the Normans downhill, they're cut off and killed. The shield wall gets thinner and thinner. But still, Harold Godwinson holds. He keeps the core of his housecarls on the ridge. The sun climbs higher, then begins to set. The Normans are exhausted. The English are exhausted. It's a stalemate. Until about 4 in the afternoon, William orders one final massive assault. All his archers, all his knights, all his infantry, everything he has left. The arrows fly high. This time, William tells his archers to shoot into the air, not directly. The arrows rain down on the English from above, hitting the tops of heads, shoulders, necks. The shield wall can't block a vertical rain of death. One of those arrows finds a target. It strikes King Harold Godwinson in the eye. The Bayeux tapestry famously shows this moment, the king clutching an arrow buried deep in his head. Harold falls to his knees. He doesn't die immediately, but he's blinded and in shock. The Norman knights see the king fall. They charge uphill one last time. 4 knights, Eustace of Boulogne, Hugh of Ponthieu, Walter Giffard, and a man named Guy, surround the wounded king. They hack him down. They mutilate his body. Some accounts say they cut off his leg. The English see their king die. The shield wall shatters. Men run. The Normans chase them into the dark woods, killing until they cannot swing their swords anymore. The battle is over. The sun sets on a hill covered in bodies. Thousands dead. The flower of English nobility, the housecarls, lie in a ring around where Harold fell. They fought to the last man. That night, William of Normandy eats his dinner on the battlefield. They say the food was served on a portable altar, and the Duke said a quiet prayer. But he wasn't celebrating. He knew the hardest part was still ahead, because London hadn't surrendered. The English still had a government, an army, a spirit. But without a king, they were lost. William spent the next weeks marching slowly toward London, burning everything in his path. It's called the Harrying of the South. He didn't fight one big battle. He just destroyed villages, crops, and cattle until the English nobles starved into submission. On Christmas Day, 1066, William of Normandy was crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey. But the coronation was a nightmare. When the crowd inside cheered, the Norman guards outside thought it was a riot. They set fire to houses around the abbey. People fled in terror. William trembled throughout the ceremony, but the crown was on his head. England had a new king. So why does this matter? Why do we still talk about 1066 like it's a crack in the fabric of history? Because William the Conqueror didn't just take a throne, he erased a civilization. In the years after Hastings, every single Anglo-Saxon noble was stripped of his land. Every English bishop was replaced with a Norman. The English language was crushed. For 300 years, the kings of England spoke French. English became the language of servants and peasants. The legal system was rewritten. William introduced feudalism, a brutal pyramid of loyalty where every man answered to his lord, and every lord answered to the king. He ordered the Doomsday Book, a survey so thorough that it listed every cow, every pig, every plough in England. It was the greatest administrative achievement of the Middle Ages, but it was also a tool of total control. Castles, those stone symbols of oppression, sprang up everywhere. The Tower of London? That's Norman, built to terrify the English into obedience. But here's the twist. The conquest also made England stronger. Before 1066, England was a target, attacked by Vikings, divided by weak kings. After 1066, England became part of a European network. Norman knights brought new architecture, new military tactics, new trade routes. The English Channel stopped being a moat of protection and became a highway of power. For better or worse, the England that would later rule an empire, that England was born on that bloody hill at Hastings. When you hear the phrase "kingdoms fell here," it's not just about Harold Godwinson lying dead with an arrow in his eye. It's about the death of an entire way of life. The Anglo-Saxon world, with its Witans, its earls, its beautiful illuminated manuscripts, and its heroic poetry, vanished into the mud, and a new, harsher, more efficient world rose from the bones. So the next time you see a castle, or hear the English language mangling French words like beef and pork, cow in the field but beef on the table, that's Norman rule right there. Remember, October 14th, 1066. Remember the feigned retreat. Remember the shield wall breaking. Remember a king who marched 200 miles, fought a Viking legend, then turned around and marched 250 miles back, only to die on a rainy hill because he was too brave or too stubborn to wait. William the Conqueror won that day. But Harold Godwinson, the last Anglo-Saxon king, became a legend, and legends, unlike kings, never truly fall. Kingdoms fell here, but the story of Hastings has never stopped being told. Thanks for listening. And if you ever visit Battle Abbey in England, look out over Senlac Hill. On a quiet morning, you can almost hear the clang of axes and the screams of dying knights. History isn't past. It's right there, buried in the mud.